Welcome to A.U.M, Ask Us Marketing. I'm your host, Callie Fedosinko. I am the founder of Savvy Advisor Marketing, a digital marketing agency developed to build relationships between financial advisors and their target audience using data to create websites, online content, and ads. We build relationships first and grow numbers second. And you can learn more about me and Savvy Advisor Marketing if you scan this QR code. Our episode today is brought to you by the Financial Planning Association, otherwise known as the FPA. The FPA is a great resource center providing education, support, and networking opportunities for advisors just like you. So you should definitely check them out. Social proof. It isn't just for your website anymore. In an AI-driven world, testimonials can fuel smarter content, improving your SEO, powering better ad targeting, and even helping AI tools speak in your voice. Today, we're talking about how to gather and structure testimonials that not only build trust, but also work harder behind the scenes. We're talking with Brian from Wealth Tender. And whether you're feeding ChatGPT, fine-tuning your marketing automations, or boosting website credibility, your testimonials might just be your most underused asset. And Brian is here to tell us why and how. So please welcome with me, Brian Thorp of Wealth Tender.
Hi,
Hi, Brian.
Kelly. Thank you very much for having me today.
Yeah, we are so excited. We love talking about testimonials and reviews because it's still a newer thing. We're all still trying to wrap our heads around what we can do, what we can't do, and then, of course, the best way to do it. So we're very excited to have you here. Let's start out because testimonials are still kind of new. Tell us what Wealth Tender is, and, why should we listen to you?
Great question. So, Wealth Center is a digital marketing platform that really helps financial advisors and wealth management firms get found by prospects wherever they're looking. So, whether they're coming to Wealth Tender itself, where we had about 500,000 visitors to the site in the last year, or if they're going to Google or increasingly going to AI tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, and beyond, having a presence on Wealth Tender helps ensure that advisors and wealth management firms are going to be more likely to show up not only on Wealth Tender, but in those traditional search results, as well as in the answers that are being generated by the AI tools. So a number of other bells and whistles, but today I know we're going to be focusing primarily on online reviews and testimonials, and that's definitely the biggest catalyst that we see for firms that are joining today. So looking for a compliance solution to be able to collect, publish, and promote testimonials with Wealth Tender as their partner.
And I'm guessing you guys are all compliance approved and follow all the rules so that there's less risk for the advisors.
Absolutely. We really designed everything at Wealth Center from the ground up to be the Boy Scout in the industry from a compliance perspective. And I love having conversations with compliance officers. I can put on my nerd hat and nerd out with the best of them. We've really designed everything to ensure that, first and foremost, even before thinking about Wealth Center as a digital marketing tool, that it has that compliance first approach to ensure we're satisfying not only the regulatory requirements, whether that's SEC or FINRA for advisors that may be subject to those regulations as well, but then of course firm policies that we can implement to ensure that your bases are covered as an advisor or wealth management firm across the board.
Also, I want to back up and then just reiterate what you said. 500,000 visitors to Wealth Tender last year. That's crazy.
That's correct. And
A
happy to
lot.
say that continues to grow. One of the things that we did at the outset when designing Wealth Tender back in 2019 was looked at what's worked well in other industry professions, trust-based professions like doctors and lawyers, where similar platforms like what Wealth Tender is today have existed for a decade or longer because they didn't have that regulatory impediment like we've seen in our
Yeah,
space. And
right.
so with Wealth Tender, we've really emulated best practices there to help drive content that ultimately is ranking well in Google and in search results across AI tools so that if somebody is looking for an advisor, they're going to be that much more likely to land on Wealth Tender. And that's, of course, helping drive the traffic that I mentioned to the site.
Yeah. Already, look at this. We've got compliments coming in. Kimberly says that you and Wealth Tender are great at helping them get things through compliance. So bravo.
Thank you for the kind words, Kimberly.
All right. So Let's talk about testimonials and what does it mean to make them optimized?
Sure. So, starting with compliance, I would say first and foremost, again, what you want to ensure that you're doing, whether you think about an online review as it exists on Wealth Tender or
Mhm.
on your own website as an advisor or in a social media post, you need to ensure a few things. So, one, each review needs to be accompanied by three clear and prominent disclosures required by the SEC. So, indicating whether or not the person who wrote that review is a current client of your firm, if they were
Mm,
compensated by you in any form to write the review, and then if there are any conflicts of interest. And those may be the only disclosures that are required by the SEC. It's
mhm,
possible if you're regulated by FINRA, you may need to add a little bit more disclosure just to indicate that past performance is no guarantee of future results. And of course, if there are any firm particular disclosures that your home office wants to see, incorporating those as well. So before we even think about optimizing a
mhm,
testimonial or an online review for SEO or visibility with consumers, you really want to make sure you have it buttoned up with compliance first and foremost. Now, next, when you do think about how you can really optimize a review or a testimonial to show up in
mhm.
search results and increasingly in AI tools, you want to think about technical considerations. And this is going to get a little nerdy on the technical front.
I love
What's
nerdy.
so what's referred to as schema markup. So
Okay.
specifically, there's a type of code that's essentially invisible to all of us as consumers when we're
Mhm,
visiting an online review website like Wealth Tender or potentially an advisor's own website. And
mhm,
if you are working as an advisor with a modern website development platform or partner, they should be able to implement that schema. So if you're displaying testimonials or reviews on your site, they can implement the same thing that we do for all advisors across Wealth Tender, which is ensuring that that schema is in place behind the curtain so
mhm,
that when the traditional search engines or when the AI tools like ChatGPT are fetching information, they're seeing that schema, and that schema markup is essentially telling those tools, yes, this is in fact a review. If there's a star rating, what that review or star rating represents, if it's on a scale of 1 to 5. And
mhm,
then, of course, what we're now seeing are the AI tools contextually taking the information from those reviews, which the schema can help with, and really synthesizing that information to see across multiple clients what people are saying about a firm.
mm.
And then, last, and
Yeah.
this would be a bit of a plug for Wealth Tender, but you
Mhm,
do want to ensure that those reviews are published on a reputable third party site. And of course,
mm,
we always encourage and we have tools to help advisors publish those reviews on their own website. But regardless of industry, whether it's financial services, doctors, lawyers, or any business,
mhm.
what you'll find is that search engines and AI tools trust reviews that are found on independent third party sites more than they do a business's own website, which of course
Totally.
totally
Makes
makes
sense.
sense and something that we really want to make sure advisors get the best of both worlds, having that review optimized on Wealth Tender, getting that independent third party validation, and then also having the reviews published elsewhere, like the advisor's website as well.
So, schema is basically just code telling the AI how to read your information. Is that right?
Exactly correct. And of
Okay.
course, as we continue to see improvements with AI
Yeah.
tools, they can pretty much read and discern a lot of the information regardless. But having that schema, having that structured data format behind the curtain really just eliminates that seed of doubt in the virtual minds, if you will, of those
Mhm.
tools to truly understand, yes, this is a review. Yes, this is a star rating. And yes, this is the information that we can rely upon if it's on a reputable platform to understand more about what people are saying about that business.
And then another question I have, this came up with someone else we talked to about testimonials, and they were telling us that with Google reviews, if it's not a client, you they'll remove the comment because there's a lot of fear like what if my competitor goes on and leaves me a poor review. uh so my question would be, does Wealth Tender have something like that in place that, oh, it's not a customer, so like this review doesn't count? I don't know how to say it otherwise.
Sure. Sure. There's a couple of things there. So,
Yeah,
starting with Google reviews, and we could go down that rabbit hole from a compliance perspective
sure.
in terms of what we know to be true and permitted by the SEC versus what's a bit of a gray area. One of the
Mm,
things with Google reviews, again, this is beyond just financial
mm,
services. If you contest a review, if you believe that there is a review that should not be published, you're going to need to go through the hoops that Google requires in order to explain why that review should be taken down. And
yeah.
we've heard from many advisors that that can be problematic. It can take a lot of
Mm,
time, or in some cases, Google may not agree to remove a particular review. And
yeah.
specifically, reviews don't necessarily have to come from a client. And so if an advisor had a concern about a Google review that was written by somebody other than a client, it's
Mm,
probably going to be difficult to get that review removed
mhm,
based on the policies and procedures in place with Google.
mm,
Now, with Wealth Tender, you do have a lot more flexibility, but I would suggest a couple of things. One,
yeah.
again, we want to always ensure compliance. So it's important to know if you do have legitimate reviews that come in, those reviews need to be published, whether they're positive or negative.
Right.
And of course, happy to say, literally more than 99% of all reviews that we see coming in through Wealth Tender are 5-star reviews. People love their advisors. So that's not really
Mm,
so much a concern. But regarding that issue, if a non-client or somebody that falls
mhm.
outside your policy writes a review, you absolutely have recourse to address that. And so what
Okay.
we see with some firms is that they will permit their advisors to collect reviews, or if it's
Mhm,
an independent firm, they can choose to establish their testimonials, policies, and procedures to specify that they only collect reviews and publish reviews from current clients. And so
mm,
that really provides that ability to say, look, if we receive a review from a non client or somebody who's not eligible according to our policy to have a review submitted or published, then through Wealth Tender, it's very easy to
to remove it.
notify that, yes, this review should be removed, and we have a way to document that for record keeping purposes. And so it's really at the discretion of
Okay.
the firm. But of course, we've got the controls to make sure firms can do that compliantly and easily if that, in fact, is the policy that they're looking to implement.
Right. Okay. Good to know. Um, and now I did take us off course, so I'll go back. How should we be using testimonials specifically with AI tools? Because I was the we are talking about how our testimonials outcompete AI. However, I do want to talk about how they help. So let's talk about, you know, how should we be using our testimonials with AI beyond getting AI to see them via schema markup?
Sure. So, in addition to just ensuring that they're visible, which we've really covered, you can think about those reviews now when they are showing up in ChatGPT and those types of tools, that they
Mhm.
become an extension of your sales team, or, part of your sales team, if you want to think about it in that regard. And that now those reviews are evergreen, they're working for you. So again, inbound inquiries, whether somebody gets on the phone with a member of your team or the advisor, him or herself, they're seeing those reviews and not just reading about the advisor to see how they talk the talk about what they do. They can
Mm,
read those client reviews that really reflect, yes, indeed, according to these clients, that advisor walks the walk with what they say and advertise on their website. The clients are really providing that validation. And so, from an AI perspective, you're going to hear increasingly terms like
mhm.
AEO, answer
Yes.
engine optimization, or GEO, generative engine optimization. We'll see which term sticks, or maybe just AI, SEO.
Right.
Regardless, those online reviews, testimonials are getting indexed and do play a really important role to
Mm,
help the AI tools learn a little bit more about what clients have to say. But importantly, too, contextually, what are people saying in their reviews? If you're an
mm,
advisor that specializes in working with people going through divorce, or small
mm,
business owners, or families with special needs, it's likely that contextually the reviews that people are writing, the short stories that they're sharing, are talking about the services that are relevant to the type of client that you're looking to work with. So thinking about how those testimonials can work for you in AI tools, having those short stories beyond just, my clients like me and having 5 stars. Contextually now, if a consumer is going out to an AI tool and saying, I'm looking for an advisor that specializes in helping people go through divorce or serving small businesses, it's not just looking at what you write about the services you offer on your website. Contextually, it can now look to those reviews and essentially
right.
train itself to say, wow, okay, clearly this is the advisor that I should be surfacing higher or more prominently based on the fact that, again, it's not just the advisor talking about how he or she helps in a particular category, but the reviews that clients have submitted are validating that as well.
Um, are there different formats that work better than others? Like, is video better than written? Specifically with AI, does one work better than another?
Yeah, at least today, we're definitely
Mhm.
seeing that the written reviews serve as that fundamental foundation for the AI tools to go and ingest that information and then contextualize and synthesize that information to appear in the answers that are being generated.
Yeah.
Now, what we really encourage advisors to consider is, of course, starting with an online review strategy where you want to make sure at the outset you're sending an invitation out to all of your current clients to really mitigate cherry picking concerns. And then
Mm,
as those reviews come in, you're going to start to see stories that have been submitted by clients that really resonate, where you now have an opportunity to leverage those online reviews to identify the clients whose stories could almost become a script that you could
mm,
reach out to them and say, hey, thank you so much for the kind words that you shared. Would you be so inclined to jump on a video and
yeah.
share that feedback, where now the client doesn't even necessarily have to feel discomforted because they've already essentially written the script. It makes it a little bit easier for them to do so. And now having that video testimonial, I think, certainly can help
Mhm.
from an AI optimization perspective. Those scripts from the videos themselves could certainly be ingested and even produced as some of the output that appears in traditional search results or within the AI tools. But ultimately, where I think the video testimonials can be most impactful is with humans. As
Mhm.
people are going
Absolutely.
out and
That
getting to see
emotional
those
thread.
testimonials, it really helps create that even more emotional reaction beyond just
Right.
the emotion that can be read by clients within a written review itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Definitely, I feel like videos bring in that emotional appeal, but I think, yeah, my gut was telling me AI probably isn't gonna be able to use video like it can text at this point. I'm sure that will change the future, but for now, um, okay, so if you're reaching out to all of your clients because you don't wanna be cherry picking, are there questions that you should be asking to get better testimonials, ones that are maybe specific or have an emotional feel and, to be more effective? Are there
Sure.
questions we should be asking?
Yeah, and there's a couple of different ideas in
Mhm.
terms of the approach here. Now, first and foremost, you want to be careful not to lead an individual to only write reviews if they feel they've had a positive
Mm,
experience.
mhm.
Now, with that said, there are a lot of great ways that you can elicit a response and provide some kind of talking points to help people get thinking. What we've actually seen work well, for what it's worth,
Mhm.
is just having a general invitation where the advisor can reach out to their clients and invite them to review, letting them know your feedback helps other people decide
Yeah,
if we may be a good fit to work together as well. So, of course, they know that review is benefiting you and the firm, but also just reminding them that that review, more than anything, is designed to help other people decide if you
right.
may be a good fit to work together. Now, with an open ended invitation, what we found is that quite often that individual, when they submit the review, that there's likely something that's coming to mind, even without prompting them more specifically, that really resonates. So they're like, oh,
Mhm.
I know exactly what I want to write about, because there's something when they see that prompt that they're thinking, oh, it's all about how they helped us ensure we had education funding in place for our child, or transitioning into retirement after leaving my career in this particular profession or at this
Right.
employer. Now, with that said, there are some very specific questions that you could ask and do so without risking regulatory concerns. And that would be things like saying, hey, before we began working together,
Mhm.
and you think about how you felt before we began working together and how you feel
Mm.
about where you are today, could you share a little bit about what you've seen from a before and after perspective?
Yeah.
Or, more specifically, you could reach out and say, as you consider writing a review, here are a few questions that you may want to take into consideration to help you decide what to write. One could be, what specific problem did we solve together? Another might be, what surprised you most about working with us? Or what would you tell a friend who's in a situation you were in?
Yeah.
when you joined our firm. And then, of course, going back to some of the niche specific type questions. If you do
Mhm.
work with people going through divorce, it could be as simple as, how did we help you navigate the financial complexity of the divorce process? Or you work with business owners, how has our planning changed how you think about your business exit? And of course,
Mhm.
you can be much more specific based on what matters most to you and your clients, but those are certainly great ways to prompt in a manner that could be compliant as well as driving some of those contextual responses around the topical areas that may be of most interest to you.
And do you have I mean, you work with a lot of advisors with testimonials. Do you have any tips on, how to incentivize clients to actually leave a review?
Sure. So, a couple of things on that front. One, we've seen typically, even without any incentivization, and I would
Mhm.
mention that the vast majority of advisors, we don't see incentivizing their clients to write a review and still getting a great response rate.
Mm.
Typically, when that advisor sends an invitation to their clients,
Mhm.
the within the first 24 48 hours, they're going to see about 10 to 20% of their clients respond. So, a good success rate there. And then
Yeah.
beyond that initial request, it's easy enough to start to incorporate that periodic invitation into your day-to-day work process. And then that might be, each year after an annual client review meeting, you're following up a week later saying, hey, by the way, just making sure you feel good about everything that we spoke about. If you're so inclined, then here's where you could write a review, share a little bit about your experience again that could help other people decide if we may be a good fit
Mhm.
to work together as well. So we do see that as something that has really worked well for people. Now, beyond that, and I missed your question specifically. Can you
I
just
know.
remind me?
Just do you have any tips on how advisors can incentivize their clients to
Right.
leave
Thank
a
you.
review? Yeah.
So again, the incentivization isn't necessarily necessary.
Mhm.
But the other thing to keep in mind, if you do choose to incentivize, any form of compensation, whether cash or non-cash, does need to be disclosed on the review or accompanying the review itself. So if you did want to incentivize with a gift card, it's permitted, but you would need to ensure that with every disclosure that accompanies a review where that was the case, that you would indicate that that individual received a gift card for their review. It could be a charitable donation that you make on behalf of
Mm,
clients, which could still
okay.
be disclosed and sound a little
Right.
less,
Right,
like
like you're
fishy,
paying
right?
someone.
So there's some ways to do it, but
Yeah.
I would say more often than not, what we see in our profession specifically
Mhm.
is that many of these relationships, this isn't a transactional business. Many of these
Right.
relationships have been going on for multiple years, if not decades. And when the advisor does reach out, the clients are, beyond just paying for the services, eager and happy to write a review because they do feel that that advisor has made such a difference in their lives that they're happy to take the time to do that, even without any additional incentive.
Okay. Um, so testimonials, like, I think there's so many opportunities for them. Like, you can put them onto your landing page on your website. Adding them to nurture sequence, huge, right? You've met someone and now you're following it up and you've got that credibility of, listen, this is what somebody else has said about me. But what are the rules around marketing those reviews? Because I know there's the cherry picking and you have to show everything. So can we even include it in our nurture sequences? Or if we do we have to like include all of them?
Great question, and I've got a good answer. So, fortunately, the SEC understands the opportunity for business owners, for financial advisors to do exactly the types of tactics that
Yeah.
you've suggested. Now, that does come with a couple of additional disclosure requirements. So, just to take a step back, when we talk about an online review platform like Wealth Tender,
Mhm.
where on an advisor or a wealth management firm's profile, you see every single review in one location.
Mm.
The only disclosures primarily needed are for each review, whether or not it was written by a current client or not, if they were compensated or not, any conflicts or not. However, when you do choose to promote just a single testimonial, whether that's in a social media post or on a billboard, it could be in an email nurturing
Mm.
campaign, any instance whatsoever, there are a couple of additional disclosures that are required. One,
Okay.
simply indicating that the views are not representative. So the
Mhm.
fact that you're promoting a single testimonial, or maybe on your homepage, you're choosing to do a carousel with three
Mhm.
testimonials, So those are not representative. And then you need to also provide text and a link that provides a location where a consumer can read a representative list or all of the reviews about that advisor or about the
Mhm.
firm. And that doesn't even have to be a clickable link. So again, if it was a billboard, it could just be a short URL, which again, in the case of a
Yeah.
billboard, it would need to be something that would be easy enough. You know, it can't be a long URL, something that people could memorize and jot down. It could be a QR code.
Mm.
The SEC explicitly permits QR codes for that particular purpose.
Mm.
And again, could be a very straightforward way to now start to incorporate those testimonials into your marketing activities. So one of the things that we did at Wealth Center to help facilitate that
Yeah.
process, we created a tool called Testimonial Marketing Studio. So once advisors
Mm.
and firms have reviews on Wealth Center, they can
Mhm.
essentially click on that review, choose from different templates that will automatically pull in those required disclosures, and then have an image file or an animated file that they can then use in LinkedIn posts or offline,
That's
and
great.
flyers where you could print that testimonial with the appropriate disclosures on a flyer if you're
Right.
doing in-person seminars or any other types of marketing activities. In fact, Kimberly Campagna with Berkshire Money
Mhm.
Management, who chimed in here in the comments,
Yeah.
has done a great job at her firm of incorporating testimonials with the appropriate disclosures and postcards that they
Mm.
send to people in the neighborhood. And that's worked very well for them to generate new prospects and new business as a
Yeah.
result.
I can definitely see that being very powerful. Way to go, Kimberly, if you're still here. um, all right, as we are like coming to a close here, is there anything that people should know about testimonials and specifically testimonials and AI that we haven't covered yet?
Yeah, well, one thing I would say is
Mhm.
it's still early days. It's fewer than 10% of advisors and wealth management firms that are using online reviews or testimonials in any capacity. And so, from a search engine perspective, from an AI perspective, that means if you're amongst the 10% that take advantage of
Mm.
this opportunity, you're going to be that much more likely to appear in AI tools. And those advisors and firms not taking advantage of the opportunity are simply not going to show up as prominently or as frequently as those who do. So kudos to those who are taking advantage of this. And of course, it's still very early days, just by definition of the number of firms and advisors that are getting started with this. The other thing to be aware of, and this may change. Obviously, everything may change in the AI
Mhm.
world as it continues to evolve. Beyond some of the compliance gray area regarding Google reviews, it's important to know that at least today, Google reviews are not showing up in
Mm.
essentially any AI tool. And for
Oh, that
whatever
is
reason,
interesting.
not even Google's own AI tool,
Mm.
Gemini. So, one of the things that we focus on at Wealth Tender is helping ensure that the reviews collected on our platform can
Mhm.
be collected at the advisor level for solo advisors or for firms with multiple advisors at both the advisor and the firm level. And the visibility of those reviews that then appear in not only Wealth Tender and traditional search engines, including Google, but
Mm.
also will show up in the AI tools across the board. So again, maybe that will change at some point. But if you think about ChatGPT as an example, they're
Mhm.
really in bed with Microsoft. Microsoft uses Bing. Bing's a competitor to Google. They don't
Right.
really play nice with Google reviews. And for, again, whatever reason, Google's own tools aren't picking them up either. So it may change at some point in the future. But today, just another value add benefit to understand some of the ways that Wealth can help and ways that Google reviews can't.
Absolutely. In fact, here's a testimonial saying just that. um, Kimberly said, last she checked, ChatGPT isn't crawling Google reviews, but it is reading her Wealth Tender reviews. So that's fantastic news for you, Brian. Although you already knew
Indeed.
it, but we've also got a question here. Um, Allie would like to know, for advisors who haven't started doing reviews, what are the first steps they need to take to start doing that in 2026?
So, first and foremost, speak with your compliance officer. That's always where you're going to want to start because this is still relatively new territory.
Mm.
And of course, when I say relatively new, the marketing rule took effect back in 2021. So, we've got everything buttoned up from a regulatory perspective and a commercial perspective, if you will, in terms of how to ensure advisors and firms can compliantly get started. And then from there, after the conversation with the compliance officer, you're going to want to make sure as a firm that you have your policies and procedures in place to get started with testimonials. What we do for firms that are interested, we have kind of a Mad Lib style template where you can take that as a resource, make some of the updates based upon the preferences for your particular firm. And then once you have that in place and check the box in your Form ADV indicating that you do collect and publish testimonials, you're in a great place to then get started. Where again, we kind of walk you through the steps if you join Wealth Tender, or we'll also make available a playbook for firms that prefer to do this on their own, where you can take advantage of the templates and checklists that we provide to do it if you just want to collect the reviews on your website and not have them on Wealth Tender and showing up in AI tools and all the things that we can help with there as well.
And are those resources available on wealthtender.com?
They are. So advisors, best place to go would be wealthtender.com/grow, where you'll find more information about the benefits we offer, as well as the resources to be able to get started with the testimonials. And of course, I'm always happy to help, easily findable online, whether LinkedIn or directly on Wealth Tender, and happy to jump on a call with anybody if I can be helpful or point you to resources that we're happy to make available as well.
Amazing. And for after I upload this to our podcast, you can contact Brian at Brian, Brian, at wealthtender.com. Thank you so much for joining us, Brian. This was really insightful to know. I mean, I just took away Google reviews aren't showing up in AI. That wasn't expecting that. So
Who
really
knew?
appreciate the time you spent with us today. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you again for the time.
Absolutely. And thank you to everybody joining us. Please join us next Monday as well. We're going to be talking about interactive lead magnets and how they drive sales with, and I can't read his name and I'm blanking on it, but Nitrogen, the guy from Nitrogen. He will be with us. Oh, Craig Clark. Now I can see it. Craig Clark will be joining us next Monday, and we'll be talking about how these like quizzes and other things that are interactive, how that drives sales, not just getting leads in. And if you have questions that you don't want to ask in the chats, you can always schedule a call with me to ask me one-on-one. I would say any question, but there are limits. There are limits. So most questions. And if I don't know the answer, I will point you in the direction of somebody who does.